Weight and balance extreme conditions. So in this module, we're going to review some things, or we're going to introduce forward and aft extreme conditions. We're going to go over the procedures for testing or actually checking the forward and aft extreme conditions. It's all going to be paper and pen calculations. There will be nothing that we certainly would not want to fly the aircraft, but we want to make sure that the aircraft could not inadvertently be loaded to a point where it would actually fall out of that safe center of gravity range. Weight and balance extreme condition or adverse condition check is something that's done to the airplane when we're worried about the aircraft falling either nose heavy or tail heavy in regards to the center of gravity. This is a pencil and paper exercise that we're going to do to make sure that the aircraft is actually safe to fly. So a forward extreme check is basically what we're going to do is everything forward of the center of gravity is going to be maxed out. We're going to max out the fuel load. We're going to max out the pilot. If his seat and the co-pilot is forward of the center of gravity, those are going to be full. Any cargo that we can load is going to be full. Any fuel that we're going to put in that's going to be aft of the center of gravity is what we call minimum fuel or METO fuel. And METO fuel is calculated by you take the minimum except takeoff horsepower of your engine. So we calculate that, and the type certificate data sheet's going to give us that data, going to tell us exactly what it is. We divide that by 2, and then that's going to be the number of pounds of fuel that we're actually going to put behind the center of gravity, assuming you have to put any back there. That's going to be the minimum. That gives you 30 minutes of fuel to fly that airplane. We're going to do a mathematical calculation of this weight and balance, and we're going to see now, does that weight and balance fall within allowable limits or not? And if it does, you're fine, and if it doesn't, then we're going to have to placard that aircraft and mark it as such. An aft extreme condition is just the opposite of the forward extreme. Everything now is going to be loaded aft of the center of gravity. So the aft cargo bay would be full. Any of the fuel tanks behind the center of gravity would be full. The pilot seat would be full if it was forward of the CG, but the co-pilot or the passenger seat, well, that would be empty, and maybe the passenger seat that was behind them, those would be full, again, if they're behind the center of gravity. Again, this is all a mathematical pencil and paper check to make sure that our aircraft is safe for flight and we're keeping that center of gravity range where it belongs. Calculating the forward and aft checks, seat, baggage, fuel, center of gravity, all of this stuff, you can see if it's forward of the CG and we're doing a forward check, it's full. If it's after the CG and we're doing an aft check, it's full. So if you're doing a forward check, anything after the CG is empty. If you're doing an aft check, anything forward of the CG is empty, obviously with the exception of the pilot seat because we're not remote control flying aircraft. And again, the same thing here. Okay, so additional specifications. Let's look at our extreme check condition. Our aircraft empty weight is 1,850 pounds. The empty weight CG is 92.45. The CG limit is right in between the 89 and the 99 inch marks. Our maximum weight is 3,200 pounds. We have our fuel capacity. We know where they're going to be loaded. 45 inches is going to be at the 95 inch mark. 40 gallons is going to be at the 102 inch mark. And you can see we've got in parentheses off on the side our usable versus our unusable fuel. So, and again, all of this information we're going to take into consideration when we start calculating this forward or aft extreme CG check. Remember, the total arm is the airplane center. The total arm is the distance from the datum to where the center of gravity is. That's my arm, okay? And the arm of the center of gravity is going to be the total moment divided by the total weight, and we've had that picture on the board numerous times, and you're going to see it again, but just think of it as MAW, M-A-W, moment over arm times weight. In this forward CG check, you can look, we've mathematically calculated it, and with everything that we can load forward of the center of gravity, we still come up with 90.2 inches. We have a total weight of 24,525 and a half. We have a total moment of 221,225. to give us a moment of 90.2 inches. For our forward check, we did our METO, our minimum fuel for a 375 horsepower engine, so we're going to need a minimum of 187.5 pounds. We've got a pilot and a passenger seated in a forward seat. They're position 82. Again, is 82 forward to 90? Yes, it is. So they're both going to be full. Okay. The CG does fall within limits at 90.2 pounds, so we're happy with that. We've done an extreme forward check. Do we need to notify the pilot? Shouldn't think so. The airplane is within limits. He couldn't, realistically, if he followed the checklist, he should not be able to load that aircraft out of the CG limit in the forward check. On the aft check, again, the same thing. Everything aft of the center of gravity gets maxed out. We did it here. You can look at all the numbers that we've got, our baggage, our fuel, notice the arms, notice the moments, and we come up with a 99.6 CG range. Okay? Remember, we only put a pilot up front because he was forward of the center of gravity. The fuel tank at 102 was filled to minimum fuel. Okay? The center of gravity is out by 0.6 of an inch. So the aircraft, we're going to have to placard the airplane so that this airplane doesn't inadvertently fly in this condition, because we do not want the aircraft flying in that condition. So there may be something in there that says in this configuration, and do not limit the aft cargo bay to whatever we calculate as the minimum can be, so that the pilot knows not to load up the aft cargo bay and leave the front one empty and end up with a condition where the aircraft is out of limits. Okay, to summarize this module, we want to talk about the extreme condition checks. Remember, we did some forward extreme condition checks and some aft extreme condition checks. Remember how we actually calculated the forward extreme condition check? We loaded everything forward of the center of balance that we could possibly load, and we took everything out that was after the center of balance. And the goal of this was going to be, let's see if we can get this airplane to actually fall out or have that center of balance fall forward of the center of gravity limit. And then we did the aft extreme check, which is just the opposite. We took everything that was forward of the center of balance that was not needed in the airplane, and we loaded it aft of the center of balance. That meant we filled up the fuel tanks after the center of balance. We took any passengers that were forward of the center of balance and we put them in the back. And the goal here is to see if we can get the airplane to fall out of the center of balance to fall behind the allowable limit. All pen and pencil checks. Nothing is done in the real world. So we're going to just calculate this with a pen and pencil.